See ya. Thanks everybody for coming to the April 27th work session. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We'll start with some committee meetings tonight and start with the Public Safety Committee.
All right. So we had unanimously voted Councilor Kent as secretary. We went through our last meeting minutes, but we don't have them. Unfortunately, it falls underneath the water rate too. Is that, we had the old email address, so we're gonna recreate it.
Okay.
So, and then we'll pass those. So we did have a recommendation of a 6% increase on the public safety fee, and that's gonna increase by $1.20 a month. National Night Out is gonna be on Tuesday, August 4th. And there's gonna be some exciting things that happen out there. We're gonna ask that the 4th Street between Oregon and A, they get closed just for public safety and for people, for our event to have vehicle access. So, and Cliff's gonna be looking at to see if we can use the tank again this year. I don't know if it's ready for that, but I heard there might be. And this time, instead of pies, donut eating contest.
Donuts? Kind of go with the theme.
Yeah, so I think that's it. Now we're just gonna do the research, make sure we can start to line up the events. Also prizes to be worn.
Okay. And August 4th, is it still 5 to 7-ish?
Yes.
Excellent. Thanks, sir. Councilor Holt?
The public safety fee, does that 6%, does that just encompass our contract?
Yeah, so that's
Jim?
What do you mean
I'm
as a
asking,
contract?
so the public safety fee, is that just us paying for our sheriffs?
Yes, that's just
There's
for,
no additional charges within that amount?
there are the sheriff's deputies, the full-time sergeant, dispatch and records, and there's a little bit of overtime in there, in the event that they work overtime. And that annual contract, just so the whole council knows, came in at almost 12% increase overall. Because half of the contract is paid for by the public safety fee, half of it is paid for by the property taxes that come into the city. Only half of that increase in the contract was suggested to be, or recommended to be used as an increase to the public safety fee.
So it's just covering the cost.
Just
Yeah,
covering the cost.
that's really what I wanted to
And we're not
clarify,
getting
it's
more
just the
coverage.
cost.
Just the
Yeah,
cost.
Yeah.
And that's all what really was, is, we had other alternatives, but we just want to go year by year, sort of like the water rate, and adjust
I
accordingly
agree.
with that.
Which, yeah, I think it was a smart idea. And you said $1.20 monthly?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Parks and Tree Advisory Board.
That's me.
Joan?
It was pretty focused this last meeting. We approved the minutes, and basically the rest of the meeting was around talking about the Arbor Day celebration yesterday, the vendors, who was coming, who wasn't. Most of them did. It went off pretty well, in my opinion. Gave away fir trees, grand firs, ponderosa pine that were bred for the Willamette Valley. And so a lot of people were happy to take them, people with property. We didn't let people that just had a yard. But then there were a whole bunch of nursery plants that were given away as well. The pot plants went first. I'm not sure why. But actually, we didn't have pot plants. They were.
Gosh. You had
I was there.
I was just gonna be quiet. It's like, okay.
They each could get 4. Anyway, so yeah, we gave those away.
I feel like I missed out.
So yeah, it went very well. So that was basically what the meeting consisted of at that point. And our next meeting will be May 12th.
Okay. And I want to thank not only Parks and Trees for a wonderful Arbor Day and more vendors this year, but I really want to recognize too, Cliff and the Public Works, the park looks phenomenal. The
Jade
grass,
was cute, I
the
tell you.
grass is, there's not a weed, you got it at a good height to take the abuse, and I thought it was a beautiful representation of Creswell and all the hard work that's been put in, so thank you. Thank the crew.
And that Jaden, the new guy, he was very, very helpful and very, very nice. So yeah, you got a good one.
And that was a lot of plants to unload, that was a
Oh, I
pretty good
tell
sized trailer.
you,
so.
yes. Uh-huh.
Awesome. Thank you, gentlemen. Go to the Airport Commission.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was unable to attend the meeting, so I'm going to hand over the report to our beloved city.
Fearless leader.
Airport Manager, Shelley Humble.
Mayor, Council, we held our meeting on April 15th. We had a work session that started at 5:30, so we finished reviewing the rules and regulations. There's just a few minor changes, which we're working on, and then it will go before you at some point for approval. Then we convened that meeting and started, we closed that meeting and convened the actual work session. We talked about the ongoing grants that we have currently. We have several core grants that I am desperately trying to close. One is for the Ham Base Station, which is almost closed. I'm just ordering the last few radios, and then we have volunteer staff from the state Oregon resiliency team that are going to come down and put the radios together so that they'll be ready for their June 3rd, I think it's June 13th and 14th. Disaster, whale run disaster at the airport. So we'll have that up and running. We have the other grants that we're working on. We're still working forward on the North Master Plan, or the Master Plan is still ongoing, and the North Taxi Lane project. Hopefully we'll be able to break ground within the next 60 days and get that project done prior to the National Stoll event. The EPUD project is almost done. The last remaining part will not affect the airport. It's just on airport property. The STEM, Mike Anderson gave us an update on the STEM portion with Creswell School District. They are working, they're looking to see whether it is more cost effective for them to hire CFI, certified flight instructors. They would love to have a senior walk across the stage, receive his diploma and also his private pilot license. Mm-hmm. So they're looking at other venues to get that done. There's certain rules regarding the school regulations on how they can do that. So they're trying to see what is the best option for that. The maintenance part of it will be looked at. They do have an A&P mechanic that is actually the shop teacher. So he's also working with them on aviation. And then part of the use of the new STEM building that they're building will be to have an aircraft maintenance portion in that building. So that's coming along. The big things, ODART which is a disaster relief. It's where they bring in food to our airport. There's 5 airports in the state of Oregon that they bring food in from Idaho, and then they use airplanes to bring them to the coastal cities as a trial run to see how everything works, what doesn't work. They have a reconnaissance team also that will go and check out roads so that if Cascadia does hit, they're better prepared for what does work and what doesn't work. That's June 13th and 14th. If you want to volunteer, just get in touch with me and I'll get you with the powers that be. The Young Eagle Rides will be On July 4th, of course, we're going to be starting at 9 a.m. Last year, we registered 75. I'm hoping, pilots probably aren't, that we break 100 rides this year. We'll see if we can't.
And what dates are those?
So ODART is June 13th and 14th, and 4th of July is Young Eagles.
Okay. I know I got 2 young boys who are ready to sign up.
Perfect. And then the National Stool Competition is August 28th and 29th.
Excellent.
And that, yes, sir?
With regard to the rules and regulations, would it be the preference of the council that we have a work session to kind of walk you through some of what those changes are before you vote to approve it? It's mostly reformatting, I would say, but there are a couple of new sections in there. So it won't be, I think, a long presentation.
A
but
small presentation for
it
work
might be
session.
valuable that before you vote on it, for
I
us just to walk
definitely
you
would
through
like
it.
that.
Nice to know what we're voting on.
Okay, we'll schedule that for a work session then.
Okay.
Maybe we can ask questions.
Yep.
Any
And
other,
then the Stool is just coming along, so.
any other questions for Joey? How has the stool been so far in the planning and the voluntold to do so, and the council all nodding unanimously to really bring something super cool?
I can answer the voluntold, they love that.
Yeah, I can see it on their faces.
Actually, it's going really well.
How's fundraising?
Fundraising is going. We're finalizing the sponsorship program, but I've already had over 15,000 confirmed, with a lot more coming.
So
That's
bet,
great.
so
So
betting on
people are
you is
reaching
a-
out to me and that have heard, and so it's going really well.
Well, as soon as I went home, I looked it up and saw Creswell TBD, and it was pretty exciting to only see about 10 maybe events.
There's 8 events this
Eight
year.
events
Well,
this
and I don't
year?
know that last year there was 14. I think they just haven't got them all
To
on
see
there yet.
Texas and Missouri and Alabama and Kentucky and all these big states with big cities to come to us, I thought was pretty neat, so. pretty
We've
cool.
already got 16 confirmed contestants, so.
How many do you anticipate hopefully having?
We'll probably have 35, 40 to 50. 50 is pretty taxing to get it all done in one day. But yeah, the pilots are really, really excited.
Cool.
We've got them coming from Nevada, Idaho, Wyoming, Oregon, Washington, California.
And do we have any of our locals gonna be there?
Oh yeah, we have 5.
Okay. Even better, we got some home team.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Shelley.
yep.
All right, Lane Act, Counselor Kent.
Yes,
Sir.
I was unable to attend this last meeting, but I do have an adjacent transportation thing to
Okay.
report on, which is that Lane County Becky Taylor has, let me see, sorry. I'm still not well. So there's, Wayne County's getting a whole bunch of money for transportation-related stuff with the transportation plan. So they reached out to us and to Curtis and about signing on, doing a letter of, that we're interested in this, that they would do some safe school stuff and some other things like, having a speed sign, money to put speed signs up and traffic calming signs and things like that.
Excellent.
So I'm not sure, Curtis, is there anything you wanted to add, or I know you and City Manager Martorell were gonna have a discussion on where to go from there.
No, you covered it.
Okay, thank you. So that's basically it.
Okay, excellent. Thank
Didn't
you.
we do a safe routes to school?
We did, Shelley did that the last couple of years.
We
and
did the order of
We
importance
did.
list, right?
And it was, at the top of the list, I believe, was the sidewalks and then getting rid of the crosswalk. Or
So
adding
we
the
are-
crosswalk from the
And we
school.
did the crosswalk already.
The crosswalk was done.
All right.
I use it.
Good to know.
All right, we'll move on to administrative and finance.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, just put on your radars to make your court dates that are coming. If you've missed it, just to reschedule with Caitlin, and that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, are we doing court dates? I thought we were putting
No, we're,
table that since we're
Well,
getting a new
that-
judge.
That's what I thought.
We need to have that. I think we need to meet again.
well, I don't think anything has changed.
Nothing has changed at this point. What the committee has talked about is very similar to what we did with the city attorney.
Okay.
Is that modify the charge to see if the judge in that case would meet with you guys quarterly to give kind of a rundown on how the court's going, so you have a little bit more face time. But we haven't changed that yet. We worked on the city attorney first.
Okay. So my question would be, since we are getting a new judge, is it relevant to go ahead and walk through this process since we're already
And that's
heading in that direction?
That's a good point. The current judge wants to stay, I think, till his time's up in August.
Okay.
The candidate is aware of that.
And he's
So
ready to
we'll-
roll in August, right?
Yep, so we'll be so we have a little bit of time to draft that contract and update the policies with the committee. So we've been focusing on the city attorney one.
So should we talk to the committee, or should we do a head nod with the council tonight and decide is it worth?
But yes, if that's the case, I guess there's
no reason
There's
to.
no
I don't see a reason to
there will
waste
be no, it will just be a
The-
goodbye
Good
and.
good luck. Good luck. God bless and thank you.
So the process would be modify the charge for the municipal judge, much like what you did for the city attorney.
Which I like.
To give the committee the ability to review the current process and offer you a alternative.
Yep.
Which would be more the evaluation is done on a quarterly basis with their coming in and taking care of it. Still leaving the option though for the council that if you want to have a year-end annual review, a more formal review, you can do that as well. So it's really giving the council the ability to choose.
So I'm open to what the committee wants to decide for the future, but I'm saying for right now, I don't think we need to move forward with coming to court and filling out a form on a judge who's leaving us. We've already done that multiple times. Everybody here's done it at least once. He's leaving. I think the focus should be on the new judge and the new structure or infrastructure to review the new judge, in my opinion. So if the council's good with
Sure,
that.
no, that's a great
Yeah.
point. That's a great point.
Council,
And it's correct that we're gonna be going to day court, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so
Correct.
so this whole.
yeah, so is the council good with foregoing okay, so let's
Okay.
forego coming to court, doing a review, and move on from that, and that way we'll expedite the situation.
Well, since we're discussing this, when will be a good time to plan our work session for this? We're still gonna have a work session, are we not? To discuss the changes that are gonna be made?
With the committee?
For the new charge?
Yeah.
With the,
Yes,
with the
with-
committee?
yes.
We can figure out a date this week. I can work with you and figure out, and the others.
Because
figure out a
once
date.
you guys decide, then we could shop it and then
Okay.
set in stone.
Because we have the final contract to go over. It was sent out to the committee, I believe, to go over that for the city attorney. And then we can start working on the process piece for the municipal judge in that work session.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody's good with that?
Yes.
Let's make it so. Excellent. Okay, let's move on to discussion items. Creswell first. Joe, come on down.
Hey guys, I'm Joe. I've been here for about 7 years, working and living in Creswell. And I'm here on behalf of Creswell First tonight. And we do this once a year, and I always look forward to this meeting, not so much to exchange numbers, because that's not really my thing, but just actually as an opportunity to recognize the care that the city gives its community, which is more what this is about for me. So we were allocated $22,000 this last year, and we spent all but $300 of that, which we kind of kept back just in case there was an urgent need during the year. And you know, you guys got the report, but I'll list the names. If you have questions about any in particular, I can go into further review on them. But with Family Relief Nursery, which is one of my favorites because it prevents a lot of problems as well as addressing problems. They act in such a way to educate and inform families before the problems get to a place where they're destructive. Intergenerational reading collaboration, which we'd previously installed a vending machine in the grade school, which is a super cool deal. So they get it, they have good behavior, they can get a token, go down there and spend it on a book. And so we funded them again this year for $2,000 to restock and buy books for the machine, which is amazing. Hope and Safety Alliance, it was formerly known as Women's Space, but they I think, discovered that men are abused sometimes too. And they were funded for $3,000, and they're a big organization, of course, but all of the money that they're funded from us is spent in Creswell. So, and we're pretty careful about that. Community food for Creswell was funded for the full amount of $3,000, and we're lucky to have a pretty good food bank here, and I know people personally that take advantage of that. So, Creswell Clubhouse, I get letters from them. I don't know if anybody else does, but they're really great at being cute. But they're a great program for K through 12. I like any program that gets kids face-to-face and off Discord. So I love that there's a program to go to after school that isn't on a screen. I think that's great. Family Resource Center is staffed by the Creswell School District and supports families with school-aged children by connecting them to essential resources. And I know for a fact that our schools are actually really good at having their finger on the pulse to figure out which families are in need and what people might need, and they do a really good job at that. So, Caring for Creswell Kids is an organization supported by one of the local churches that does clothes and shoes for K through 12 students, and we gave them money at $2,000, and the money we gave them went towards shoes. Community sharing, $3,000. They help people pay some of their utility bills that are in need for doing that. And that is the extent of the allocation for the city money this year. And we really appreciate you guys doing that and allowing us to be a part of allocating those funds.
Any questions for Joe? Councilor Kent?
Sure.
Yeah, not directly related to what you're saying, but I'd dearly love to be able to go to the website and make a donation for that.
Yeah, absolutely. We are, and you can do that. It's more difficult than it should be, and we're actually in the process of revamping our website. But there's opportunities. We also do fundraising aside from the money that's allocated from the city. We do fundraising throughout the year for a lot of these, plus some other charity programs in town, like the Eye Center down here receives money for people to give people glasses that are in need, and the library, we receive funds for the library and do fundraising for them as well. And so there's lots of organizations and opportunities to give on there. So, yeah.
Is Creswell Clubhouse and Creswell First separate on donations? Is the websites different? Or
Yeah.
is it the same?
The clubhouse is a totally different organization. Okay. That's not us. That's a different organization. And so a lot of the Creswell First, aside from allocating funds from the city, it operates more as an umbrella giving organization.
That's what I tried to explain, but I didn't understand that when I reached out to the clubhouse. I was like, well, isn't it all the same? But it wasn't clearly. So.
It's not, no.
Yeah.
And so the organizations that we support aren't our organizations. We're a place that people can give, a 501c3 that people can give to and receive a tax write-off for their gift, and then we allocate those funds as people give them.
Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah.
Z?
Are all of the organizations under your umbrella, are they all nonprofit 501c3s so that the monies that people are getting tax deductions for are funneling down to tax deductible type organizations?
There's accountability for, they're not all 501c3s, but they're all charities, right? And all of those legalities are looked at very closely. There's people we turn down because we can't give money. Like, our hands are tied in who we can give money to and how we can give it, right? Okay. So we look at all of that when we're discussing whether to fund an organization. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Awesome. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. South Lane County Fire and Rescue District levy presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I want to thank you for making time for us to get on your busy agenda tonight. I appreciate it. I'm joined by Deputy Chief Justin Baird, who's our second in command, and our Senior Division Chief, who would actually now be our third in command, Aaron Smith. He's actually on duty tonight and would be managing the district. So, I apologize for not, coming and visiting this council more often. We're busy, kind of all hands on deck these days, running calls. I started with the fire district in June of 2014. I've been the longest serving fire chief that the district has had. And so in that time, I have managed, written, and directly controlled all of the budgets. So I know where the money comes from. I know where the money goes. And I can tell you that the district now, based on a 62% increase in call volume, roughly since about the time I started, the levy was passed, the original 47-cent levy was passed in 2012. At that time, and continue to this day, the fire district is the second lowest permanent tax rate funded entity in the county. We are the lowest permanent funded entity amongst our comparable fire districts around the state. Our call volumes increased 62%. So what's that mean? That means that we've gone from roughly 9 calls a day to 15 plus calls a day, with an average staffing of 5 people on duty. That's 2 people here in this station that we staff 24/7. So how does that impact the city of Creswell? Well, if it's an ambulance call, those 2 people are gone for up to 2 hours. If it's a fire call, they will leave the ambulance, jump in the fire truck and go to that fire. Meaning that when that happens, you either lack fire coverage or you lack EMS coverage. It's the same situation in Cottage Grove. So the district's currently budgeted for 7 positions. We operate normally with 5. We're currently 3 short. We just had 3 people resign and go to Eugene Springfield, largely because they just can't handle the pressure of the call volume anymore. So the district has not asked for an increase since 2012. When this levy's been renewed, it's been renewed at the same rate. We have not made an effort to reform this fire district at a higher taxing rate. Most fire districts our size are running near $3 a thousand. We're running at $1.335. Volunteerism is gone in the fire service. You cannot ask volunteers to run 5,600 calls a year. It just doesn't work that way. People that volunteer to be firefighters don't want to come in and go to paramedic school for 3 years and then come and get on an ambulance and run 15 calls a day and not get paid for it. That is not how this works. I have been in this profession for 35 years, and I've never seen it get to the point it is right now. We are a fire district that cannot staff a fire truck 24 hours a day. If you don't think that's a problem, I'm going to point to the recent fires that we've had, including a fatality in Cottage Grove, where we did have 5 people on duty that night. Fortunately, they were all in the stations, and we were able to mount a quick response and stop that fire before more people died. There were 3 people that were injured in that fire. So what is this levy going to do? If the levy is increased, we need to add critical service capacity. The only way we can do that is with staffing. We need to be at 14 people a day in order to properly staff this station with an engine, with a dedicated fire engine and a dedicated ambulance. Over a third of our call volume is in the Creswell area. 2/3 of our call volume is in the south part of the district. We're trying to get the message out, trying to get people to understand this is not an ask for the new shiny thing. The last time that we asked for money, we asked for a bond to replace our fleet. And the promise was we would not come ask for more money to buy new fire trucks, and we haven't done that. We actually got the taxpayers out of that bond almost a full year early and saved them money. We have delivered on our promises. And we need help. We just can't do this anymore. So if the levy passes, we can increase to 10 people. That's still 4 people below where we should be, but it is a far cry better than an average of 5 people on duty and a fire district that is unstaffed for fire 19.2 hours a day based on our call volume. 19 hours a day, we have no fire protection available in the district. We have 1 person. Division Chief Smith was alone today for several hours in Cottage Grove, meaning he would be the only one, if there was a fire, to jump in one of our rigs and respond to that fire. If the levy does not pass, I am going to be faced with the unenviable task of cutting service. What does that mean? That means that on a 24-hour basis, we will either brown out engine coverage or ambulance coverage to both cities. There will be 1 available ambulance that is a fire district ambulance. And I will refocus that ambulance and our resources entirely inside the fire district, meaning that people that live outside the fire district but in our ambulance service area will be relying on an ambulance that is not ours. Because I will have to focus on our taxpayers. I don't want to cut service. I don't want to end my career that way, but I will. Because we have to be able to ensure that we have at least 2 people. And that's not even safe. That's wholly unsafe. Just 2 people on a fire engine is absolutely unsafe. But imagine just having 1 person on the fire engine that has to drive it to the scene, lacks visibility on the opposite side of the engine, responds at code 3, coming all the way from Cottage Grove to Creswell, and then sets the pumping gear, chalks the truck up, pulls the line off, and has to fight the fire by themselves until hopefully an engine shows up from Goshen or Eugene, or we get one from Row River or Lorraine or North Douglas. That's the situation. Our costs have increased significantly. That fire engine sitting over there that cost us $480,000 in 2015, anybody want to take a gander on what that fire engine costs today to replace it?
3 to 4 million.
It's $1.2 million to replace that fire engine. You'll be about $3 million for that ladder truck.
Yeah, I know.
Ambulances have gone from about 185,000 to almost 400,000. We have to replace one every 2 years. So we're not coming with an ask that is without reason. And I know all the anti-no tax, this and that going on, but I think people have to make a choice and they need to know the facts. And the facts are 19 hours a day, there is no fire engine coverage available. 5 people running 15 calls a day with an average turnaround time of 2 hours. Our people are tired. We're all overworked. Every one of us pays taxes. We're all overtaxed. I get it. I 100% get it. I don't want to be the guy standing here trying to front this to people, but I wouldn't be doing it if we didn't need it. I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't 100% necessary. If we can't increase staffing, we have to cut service. So what does that look like? Today, let's just say on the odd number days, the engine would be staffed in Cottage Grove with 2 people. On the even number days, the only ambulance available in the fire district would be staffed here. And vice versa. We would flip back and forth between the available ambulance being there or the engine being here. That's going to significantly increase response times to a fire. A structure fire doubles in size every 60 seconds. So if you take a 2,000 square foot house and you start with a room and contents fire, say in a bedroom or a kitchen where they more commonly start, that fire doubles in size every 60 seconds. And it's going to take us 8-10 miles away, driving a fire engine that's governed at 65 miles an hour, that much time to go from Cottage Grove to here. Your homeowner's insurance rates will increase. The ISO rating that we fought so hard for, that we are one of only 1,000 fire departments in the United States that holds an ISO class 2. It might be 13 or 1,400 now. When I got here, we were an ISO 5.9. We paid probably some of the highest property homeowners insurance rates that you could pay. You think they're high now? If we went from a 2.4 back to a 5.9, it puts you in a whole different bracket of risk. So the days of, I get asked, well, why don't you go get more volunteers? We've tried. We have 1 volunteer left, and he's a retired pay guy. And he's currently out on medical leave.
When did that start to deteriorate?
It started before I became fire chief here. We started seeing a degradation of volunteerism about 5 years after 9/11. We had a big rush 9/11, big recruitment, like lines out the door, stacks of applications, to people commuting farther to work, employers not wanting to let them go, higher call volumes, increased risk. A volunteer firefighter has to go through the exact same amount of training and certifications that I have to go through as a career professional, that they have to go through. It is hundreds of hours of training. It's 6-7 months of training before they can even get on a truck and go on a call. We've recruited volunteers, we get them in, and we start them, and within months they're like, yeah, this isn't for me.
Can you speak to the Creswell fire that happened just, what was it, a week ago?
The shop fire?
The logistics, yeah.
So we had to, unfortunately, I'm a big animal lover, and unfortunately, 4 family dogs perished in that fire, and then they lost 12 chickens in that fire. We have to shuttle water to that location. meaning that we basically have to split our crew. So our initial response is the 2 guys that were on duty here in the fire engine to the scene, they got there, assessed it, sized it up, pulled lines. We were all coming from Cottage Grove, which was another 3 people, because that's all we were staffed there. 1 of them in a water tender and 2 of them on the fire engine. And then we had Goshen bring a tender. Ultimately, we had, I think, 5 or 6 water tenders on that fire, shuttling water, just so we could get enough flow to keep that fire from spreading to the house. And we did keep it from damaging the house. I'm 100% amazed. The crew that was here that got there and expended their almost 1,000 gallons of water they have in their tank on that fire, kept that fire from burning the house to the ground. So that's the kind of logistics is, you should have 14 to 16 people responding to a structure fire on scene within 6 minutes. We're putting 3 to 4 people on that scene in about 8, 9 minutes. So without more people, we can't ensure any measure of fire response because we're continuing to see an increase in ambulance calls. We're continuing to see a decrease in ambulance revenue, an increase in demand, and an increase in wait times at the hospitals up in Eugene. Our crews have waited as long as 3 hours. Yes, ma'am.
Can you touch on what has been causing the increase in demand for ambulance services?
So there's several factors. One is the population is aging and requiring more health care. There is a lack of facilities, available doctors and clinics. Big corporate America has bought up most of the clinics, and then they come in, they shut down the competition, or they make it where reimbursements aren't worth it, so the doctors fold their practice and they leave. There's become a higher reliance on mid-level providers, so nurse practitioners and PAs, obviously they have to check with a doctor in some instances or refer somebody to a doctor. So what happens is we become the primary source of healthcare access. People that don't want to wait 3 weeks to go to a doctor call us at 2 o'clock in the morning for the flu. They go to the hospital. Now you've got a backlog of people in the lobby waiting 13, 14 hours to get seen in the ER. Our crews are sitting on the walls for 2 or 3 hours at a time. And it's not just us, it's Eugene, Springfield, it's all the EMS services and fire services around here. And that problem was predicted. I actually wrote a paper on it when I was in the master's program about 13 years ago. I wrote a paper on what was going to happen to Medicare and Medicaid within 10 years, and now we're seeing it. The baby boomers are actually just hitting max healthcare need, and that's really putting a strain on the system. There's not enough new people coming up to have enough providers. People are not getting into our profession. We used to have 300, 400, 500 applicants for one job. Our last round, we got 3. And we have 3 jobs open. So it's pretty much 100% chance that if you can pass the vetting process, you're gonna get hired. That doesn't say much for the quality of candidates either.
That's changed. I went back to school after I graduated and got my EMT paramedic certified and never even got called from Creswell to volunteer. I offered to volunteer and never even got a call back. So that's changed quite a bit in the last 20 years. That's significant. Like, I thought firefighting was the coolest job ever.
It is not a job that people want to get into now. The risk is, there's a lot of work-life balance, I guess, is the new thing, and working 24-hour shifts is...
That's a new generation, that's not old.
I'm 100% not going to go there.
There's no work-life balance if you want.
They don't want to work overtime.
Yeah.
And I've heard conversation, I'll just say, I've heard a lot of I've seen conversation on Facebook about, overtime this and overtime that. Every overtime shift that we have right now is a forced overtime shift. We are making people come in on their day off and work. So what happens? They don't answer their phone. And those shifts are all paid at time and a half. And so you have to grab somebody that's been on for 48 hours that's just come off of a shift where we're running 15 calls a day. They're exhausted and we're making them stay another 24 hours.
It's not good.
And that's why our attrition rate is getting so high. So if we can't get this done, and the board has asked me as their sole and only employee and representative to come to you and ask you to support this. In my official role, I can't ask anybody to vote yes or no, but I can pass on the board's message, which they're asking for support from the councils, or an endorsement or proclamation or something to help push this through. I do feel a lot better about it this time. We are seeing a lot more demand for signs. We have an open house planned here this week, and we have an open house planned in Cottage Grove this week, where we're just inviting everybody down. Come ask your questions, bring your concerns, bring your comments, bring your criticisms, bring your questions, and we'll be there to answer them. Yes, ma'am.
One of the populations that you didn't mention that I know sucks up your resources is the unhoused drug addicts.
I have to be politically correct.
I understand that, I don't. So I think this question is really important, especially because we have a gentleman that's looking at Creswell to bring a village here. And my question for you, I know right now in your staffing levels, you could not take that on.
As fire chief, I won't endorse it. We saw it in Cottage Grove, and we saw what it did down there, and I can tell you that as the fire chief, I will not sign off on it, I will not endorse it, and I will not put my support behind it unless there is some form of mandatory treatment program that goes with it.
So my question is, even if we can get this levy across the finish line, you're still not going to be at a normal level of staffing to take that kind of thing on. Am I correct to say that?
Well, I'll use the Cottage Grove statistics from when we had the camps down there. We ran an additional 4 calls a day, so we were running almost 20 calls a day. 3 overdoses to 4 overdoses or fights or assaults in those camps per day. Some days more. I personally responded to calls in those camps and was being told by elected officials in that community and people that those are our citizens, those are our residents, they're from here. I talked to people from Salt Lake City, Utah, from Arizona. They were shipped here intentionally from other states because of our laws, because of our programs, because of our charity in Oregon, which I have to say is we have a lot of really good charity in Oregon. But the problem we ran into was they maxed out our ability, the police's ability, the community services ability, the mental health system ability. There was no beds for them. We still have some of them roaming the streets down there. They have been responsible for starting some of the bigger fires that we've responded on in the summer along I-5 and in our fire district. And I'm not pointing fingers or laying blame on any segments of the population of the community. I'm simply saying that is, you do not have the resources. The sheriff's department does not have the resources to deal with what is going to happen to this community if that gentleman opens that camp. We do not have the resources to directly answer your question.
Great question. I have one, nobody else does. Is 47 cents enough? I mean, I hear you say you want 14, but 47 cents gets you to 10. Is there harm in asking for what you actually need to really take care of everyone?
What we need is...
Are you guys concerned? Is that why you came in at 47 cents, a little bit lower, and you get some relief, but not quite the full relief?
We came in at 47 because that's where kind of the compression is going to hit in Cottage Grove, and we already would see about $180,000 loss on that levy at 47. So as you know, with compression, once you hit a certain point, it's not worth asking for any more money because you're just going to give it up to compression.
Okay.
Cresswell is nowhere near the compression threshold, but Cottage Grove, we do have properties in compression. Okay. And it's also, you gotta figure like how big of a pill is the taxpayer willing to swallow. And that's a big pill, I get it, it's a huge pill.
Especially in Oregon.
Yeah. Councilor Kramer?
The fire med that people pay once a year, does that help you guys at all? Or where does the money go?
So FireMed's currently in the current, I just analyzed FireMed, and it's costing the taxpayers $65,000 a year right now to fund that program. FireMed is a subscription-based service that was designed to handle out-of-pocket expenses to pay people's co-pays, basically. So Medicare requires you pay 20% of that bill. FireMed would write that off. What we've seen was people using it to act as primary transport to the hospital, and they're basically what's happened is FireMed subscriptions have dropped by over a third. We had almost 3,500 when I started. We're down to less than 2,000 subscribers in the FireMed program. We had 7 people in the program 11 people ran the program, $77,000 in debt one year before I went in and changed it with the board and limited the use to 2 times a year. The board just actually voted to raise FireMed costs to $95 a year per subscription. But people think that that is the ambulance. Some people think firemen's here, the ambulance is here, and we've fought very hard to educate people that firemen, that's not what it is. It was designed to take, and if there was money left, it buys equipment, provides community programs, training, and things like that. We haven't been able to do that for over a decade.
Monica?
I have a question. You mentioned that some people are using it like a doctor, you know, if they have the flu or something, they call you. How many calls do you get a week on something like that? Because I was wondering if people knew they were being charged, you know, a fee for something like that, maybe they'd stop using you.
Well, some people, it's, Medicare or Medicaid, if they're on the Oregon Health Plan, I mean, that's where the real problem is.
Paid for anyway.
The Oregon Health Plan reimburses us, so if the call costs us roughly, if the bill's $2,500 and the true cost to run that call is actually closer to $2,700 or $2,800 based on ambulance cost, staffing, fuel, and all that, we're actually getting about $160 from the Oregon Health Plan to reimburse us for that call, and those people, we can't go back and bill them, they don't care. They just access the system and they use it nonstop.
It seems ridiculous.
Because they know that we can't go back and bill them for that call, so they just keep using it. And in Oregon, the law is I'm a paramedic, I hold a license to practice from the Oregon Health Authority under our medical director in the state of Oregon, and so people know how to play this game. If they say, you will take me to the hospital, I demand to go to the hospital, we have no choice. We have to take them to the hospital. We cannot refuse. Even if it's a hangnail, we have to take them to the hospital. We have to tie that ALS resource up for 2 hours because they demanded to go to the hospital. The legislators in Oregon are unwilling to make the kind of change that is needed for us to say, no, we are going to initiate a refusal on your behalf. We'll call you a cab, or we'll make arrangements for you to go to a clinic or what have you, but the hospital is not an appropriate place for that. We are not an appropriate resource for that.
So how many calls do you think you get a week on something?
I would say it's probably on average of 2 to 3 a day.
That's sickening.
That's disgusting, yeah. Counselor Kramer, do you have one?
Yeah, so just kind of reiterate, let's just talk about Creswell right now. At their staff levels, what we're capable of right now, and if this levy passes, what does that look like?
So if the levy passes, we'll put 4 people up here. So we'll have 2 people on the fire engine, 2 people on the ambulance. That way we would not have to shut down the fire engine to run an ambulance call. The ambulance call would be independent of our ability to staff for a fire, and it would be the same in Cottage Grove. We would have a guaranteed ambulance and a guaranteed engine there. And then we are engaging a subcontractor to handle all the interfacility transfers from the hospital, which is going to take about 3 or 4 calls a day off of that volume. However, it also took $2 million of billable revenue away from the fire district. And I had to do that with the board on an emergency. Like, we rushed that contract through because we simply had nobody available almost 20 hours a day. The medic unit in Cottage Grove was running 22.8 hours a day they were on the road. You're asking somebody to crash at that point. So for Creswell, it would actually be an increase in service based on the distance from Cottage Grove. We factored that we could, that we need to have 4 people up here. We need to staff both those stations identically, actually. And we need 3 people on a fire engine, 2 people on an ambulance, and then a division chief to run the show. Barrett and I only work day shift. We offset Monday through Friday. However, whenever a fire call comes in that they do an all-call, I get up out of bed and go to it if I'm available, and so does Deputy Chief Barrett there, and I investigate a lot of those fires. So it's kind of, when I say it's all hands on deck, it is all hands on deck. But we need to get to a point of independently being able to staff the engine and the medic. Today, if a call goes out, you either have a medic or you have 2 people on the engine going to the fire, but whatever happens, that station is empty for hours at a time.
So if you did get volunteers, do you have the money or the funding to train them, like you said?
There would be no volunteers. There's no volunteers in this plan anymore. We simply just cannot ask somebody to come run that kind of call volume and not get paid for it and go through that amount of training. Volunteers were never meant for organizations that run over like even 1,000 calls a year. When you get to a point where you're running 3 calls a day, that is no longer an organization that is primarily staffed with volunteers. It's primarily staffed with career people at that point.
So if the levy passes and we have 4 here and 4 in Cottage Grove, how much coverage per day are we getting? Didn't you mention it was 19 hours a day that there's no coverage?
So because we would not shut down a fire engine anymore
Okay.
to staff an ambulance call, we would have 24-hour-a-day fire coverage.
So that gets you the compression, but gets us coverage at both stations,
It's putting a Band-Aid on a big
and
bleed.
maybe you can take a vacation.
I'm gonna take my retirement is what I'm gonna do.
So we're kicking the old guys out.
I'm really glad that you're having this raw conversation with us today. I wish that the last time the levy came around, we discussed it like this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's partially my fault. I'm gonna take ownership for that and just apologize to everybody because we engaged a PR firm to handle that because we thought it was a big lift. But people didn't understand the issue. People did not, and people thought we're funded by cities, we're funded by counties.
It comes better from you guys, and
really
especially in
does.
uniform. It's more real, it's more tangible.
Well, and you're
It
being
feels more
honest,
personal.
you're not
Yeah.
sugarcoating things with pretty images and text.
I'm
No,
kind
you're
of
not
known for
PR
not
guy, yeah.
sugarcoating
I
things.
am too.
You don't have a PowerPoint presentation.
I don't.
that we
You already
should-
won points there.
Yeah, so-
It's all right there, and it's
Yeah.
on our
This is
website.
simple and easy, and just a few notes to make sure that if it does pass, I want to make sure and explain the coverage.
And if you'd like me to come back to a full council meeting between now and the time of the levy, just reach out and I will clear my schedule and come
Is that
to a formal
on
council
this
meeting.
ballot in May?
It's on the May 19th
I
ballot.
wish we'd
Yeah.
had it before the
Has the
booklets went
Chronicle
out.
reached out to you to do an article about this? I mean,
Get a sign for me.
I'm not their favorite person.
I'm not either, isn't it
Nor
fun?
am I.
They did
Yeah.
a decent article.
They've engaged with the union, with our labor. Our labor's running what I call the bias campaign, and then we're just running the pros, cons, and facts tour, so to speak, just letting people know directly from the command staff and the board what's at risk here and what's potentially gonna happen.
This late in the game, how can we help you?
So, just getting the word out, just letting people know, hey, this is not a for frills ask from the fire district. This is really impactful on our service capability and service delivery in the community here because it will directly affect service in both communities.
So
Mayor,
if we put it on the website or something and the city.
I was gonna say,
and
if we
the
all
open
agreed
house.
to do an endorsement letter, would everybody be in on that? Like you guys all feel like, and then get it out on
how about on the
the
water bill?
crest,
You know,
get
those
it out on the website?
And we did have a mailer that just came out. It came out a little earlier than we wanted, but everybody should have got a postcard from the fire district that lays it out.
No,
Can we
And
put
then-
something on our reader board?
on the newsletter, the city's newsletter.
Oh, yeah, that's a
Well,
great idea.
especially for the
too.
open house, yeah, the newsletter would be good to get the
Right.
open house, I
Weekly
mean.
update.
I told him, go downstairs and get on it.
I think I kind of blew my 10 minutes, Vincent, I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
No.
We do this all the time.
Yeah,
You're
well,
fine.
that was about 30 minutes ago.
We'll see if we can't help and maybe put it on the newsletter.
Yes,
you
ma'am.
know?
Just a question, if a citizen were to want to put a sign in their yard,
Mhm.
are there any available?
So, I think the union's out of signs, but I think they might be trying to get more.
somebody's got some.
Somebody's got some signs.
Well, I know they're not cheap and they're not free.
No, but that's a testament to the awareness this time as well, that we are completely out of signs. Well, not we, the fire district doesn't own those signs, the union does. Let me be clear on that, those are not fire district signs.
I'm gonna be running a signing booth next Saturday here in town for some stuff we're trying to reverse out of Salem. If you can get me a sign, I'd love to put that up, and that way I can encourage some conversation about it when people come to my booth.
And the sign booth is to fix some of the
They
stupid
can't
that's
do it-
happened in
They
Salem.
cannot
Oh,
do it
good Lord,
for
it
you,
needs
but
fixed.
the union can, and I
Okay,
can get that.
fair enough. I'll let
Would
you
you
handle
mind
that.
giving her one of your signs?
No, I love
Okay.
rattling people's cages.
Can you put a bunch of
You
these
can
up?
even take some of our information.
I will,
Yeah.
if I can
I
take a
I can
copy
leave
of that,
these here.
yeah, that'd be
for-
great.
And they're available on our website.
Okay,
I've already read through, so you can have mine.
okay.
All right, any further questions? Let the chief out.
No,
Okay,
just a big thank you.
thank you, sir.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you all.
for your service.
Appreciate
Thank you
this.
for having
Thank
us. Sorry, Vincent, I'll do better next time.
All right.
you. You're better than the PR firm.
That was 40 grand for nothing.
Thank you for your service. No, I don't.
We'll move on to the floodplain update.
Sign up.
Curtis and Lenny?
Oh, they can't.
Lenny?
Lenny, we're ready for you.
You're on. Informational flyer.
Okay. I don't know how to follow that. So good evening, Mayor and Council. Lenny Crow, your guys' floodplain manager. Just wanted to do a quick update as to where things stand with the new maps and CRS, and we're just kind of do a quick floodplain overview. So as you may know, the appeal period for the new risk maps ended recently. We've received approximately 65 different appeals from residents, so well done. FEMA is still on a shutdown, so there's been very limited communication with them. I did get a chance to get kind of the project manager on the phone, which was a very big surprise, but very good. They're pretty tight-lipped right now, so I don't have any kind of inkling if it's gonna be a successful appeal or not. They can't really share that, and I tried my best. So the moment I get information, city manager, planning staff will know, council will know, but right now we're just kind of in limbo. Basically what will happen when FEMA can speak to us is there will be a letter of final determination, is what it's called. I don't expect that for a little bit, just given the shutdown, but once we get that letter, then we have 6 months to adopt the maps. When we get to that point, if there's questions, I'm happy to answer them, but right now, I wish I had more firm answers. We are just kind of waiting. With all this, if the maps go through, right, and no appeal is successful, there are different options that we've spoken about for residents. The elevation certificates that were submitted to me through the appeal, that was perfect. That will prove that that property is outside of the floodplain for 99.9% of those, which is good. I've offered those residents to help them through the process, and when I was on the phone with FEMA, they assured me that they will also help residents. So we're gonna kind of tag team on that one and see if we can get those folks out. But again, we'll just have to see how the appeal goes. There is a program that was discussed. It's called CRS. It's the Community Rating System. Basically, if you have higher regulatory standards, you get a discount on your flood insurance, which is good. I was made aware that the first year of flood insurance is going to be at a discounted price, so residents are not going to get hit with that giant insurance bill right away. But with that CRS, we can get more. Every class you go up, it's 1 to 10, you get a 5% discount. With FEMA being shut down, CRS is on pause. So communities that are already in it will stay in it, but until the federal government restructures the program, which they've assured us they will on their website, they are not accepting new communities into it. That being said, we can look into options of getting to that path to set us up for success so that when they do allow us to apply to be in the program, we can go in at a higher class than maybe we would right now. Your code already supports being in CRS, so there wouldn't be many changes, if any. A lot of it's public outreach. You already have a foot of freeboard. Like, you guys are on track to actually get probably 15-20% discount once they open that program again, which is good. Tying into that, you may remember I came and spoke to you about the pre-implementation compliance measures. Lovely pick 'em, basically no net loss, right? So if you build, you gotta make sure the fish can go in and out. Curtis and I are working with students from the University of Oregon on creating basically a statewide pilot program to make sure that this doesn't impact our communities as severely as it was supposed to. The compensatory storage is what it's called, build here, take out there. It can be in the same watershed. It doesn't have to be on the property, which is kind of the loophole that we've been going down of, can we do off-site mitigation and still build here and not impact the homeowner as much? So we've been working, probably 6 months now on this, and we'll have a pretty solid draft come September-ish from the students, and then we'll keep refining from there. So there's hope on all these things. It's nothing, like I said, is set in stone right now, which
As a planner, I hate to say that, but we are trying to keep abreast of the situation. With the new flood maps and everything, the city is partnering with a company called Forerunner. It is a very easy to use public facing website that you type in an address, and if there's an elevation certificate on it, it has all of that information there. It'll show you very clearly, much more clearly than the website that we've had that was given by FEMA, your effective floodplain and then the proposed. So we're working on getting that up on the website. I'm working on the back end to make sure all the data is correct and easy to read for folks. So we are trying our best to make it clear in a very murky situation right now. But I'm happy to answer any questions, and I kind of plan on coming back with an update when we get actual solidified information, but since the appeal period did end, we thought it was best if I kind of gave a little update, so.
When FEMA began this process to now, has the elevation certificates changed the standard? Has the standard of elevation changed? Because I submitted an elevation certificate, and at the time when I certified it, or had it certified, I was above floodplain. Last I heard, I am now below floodplain,
Yes,
which is quite convenient for the cash grab.
it is so unfortunate,
So,
so
yeah.
kind of.
Unfortunate's not the word I'd use, but yeah.
I'm trying to be politically correct as well,
Yeah,
right?
politically correct.
So with yours specifically, the one that I saw originally was done in the 1929 datum. That's what our effective firms are now. Basically, you think they had 12 different gauges across the whole US to get this data. Now we're in the 88 and there's 12,000, right? So it does change substantially. It is more accurate. It is annoying that you were out based off of that, but the 88 is what the firm will be, and that's what the data
That's
they
their
use.
new standard.
Yes, and that is an
Congrats.
option on those elevation certificates. Some communities adopted those a long time ago. We're just behind.
Okay. Anybody else? Thomas?
Just some questions. I filed a group appeal, as you're aware, Lenny, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Curtis. We pulled together a lot of elevation certificates from public records, which was very helpful. But what I was hearing across the board is people mid-ownership, this change affects them drastically. They're elderly, they're on fixed income, we're struggling with support for fire and ambulance. The proposed imposition of this is that flood insurance is now required if you're federally backed. So the CRS rating is extremely important. And my concern right now is just hearing that because we seem to be on pause, not because of us.
Right.
What effort, and I guess this is a budgetary question for the city of Creswell, what effort is it to actually go through the motions of gathering the information to acquire the points, to get actually enrolled into the program, and then actually have FEMA respond? Because it seems to me that as they assess our risk, they're going to impose some of these requirements upon us before we're actually able to utilize their entire program because they're on pause. So if you can maybe help us with that.
I'll do my best. So we actually did meet and talk about the points that Creswell has available. Like I said, it's a lot of public outreach. You already have the higher regulatory standards, which would get you a class or two already. So you guys are there. The problem is, and I've been really entrenched in this, is FEMA didn't renew the contracts with the people who administer CRS. They cut the contracts, it's the end of April, there's no more. So until FEMA does something about that, our hands are tied. There are different lawsuits that are out there right now. One is still going, it's the Oregonians for Floodplain Protection. That is pre-implementation compliance measures only, but there is a House bill that was introduced by an Oregon rep to Congress that basically removes the ESA from NFIP, so that's a potential option as well. But I think education of individuals is the best thing that I personally can do right now as floodplain manager, because I can't change the federal government, but reach out to reps. I hate to say it because it's not an answer, right? But it's what I can do.
Do you know what house bill that was, and what number that was, by chance?
I don't off the top of my head, I should have written it down, but I can find it and send it to
That'd
you.
be great.
Absolutely.
Debbie?
So the CRS listing and the FEMA data and listing every city in Oregon, Cottage Grove has a 20% CRS and they made it in and they get the discount and yet Creswell did not.
So-
And I know you weren't there and it's not a personal, you weren't responsible, however, there really still isn't, even though everything's on pause, there really isn't a guarantee. I know Vincent has worked on some things too to get us the points that needed and proactively do things, and that's all awesome, but at this point, it's not just no information, it really is that it just needs to, people need to know, there is no guarantee.
Right, exactly, there is none. I am, and yes, so Cottage Grove joined the CRS program in the late 2010s, before I was employed there. But again, being the floodplain manager for both communities, Creswell is on par with Cottage Grove. There's a couple more things that need to be done. It's really a lot of public outreach, which we are already trying to do. So the moment that that opens, we are ready. And I'm really trying to set Creswell up for success with that because I know how important this is. This is a huge impact to the community. I hate it personally. As a person, I don't like this. So really trying to make it okay when it can be, you know.
Thomas?
Another question related to this is obviously there's the National Flood Insurance Program and the requirements for communities that are part of the CRS to uphold enforcement, uphold the development code. And so in my discussions with some of the other landowners in the area, there's quite a few locations that have both manufactured home and RV spaces available, which the impact there is, I mean, it's really unusual. You have to uphold the national floodplain requirements. But if you have a recreational vehicle, it can't be in one spot more than 180 consecutive days, for example. Those types of enforcement issues are probably a nightmare. We also have a lot of mobile homes or even fifth wheels that now have planter boxes in front of them, so you can't even move them if you wanted them to be freeway ready, you know, on wheels still. I'm more concerned about the city of Creswell and the impact to having to budget to enforce these requirements now that these things are coming into play. And obviously, there's no crystal ball to know what FEMA's going to tell us based on the appeal. But I would say the largest section of impacted development for residences west of I-5 was these manufactured homes and RVs. Is there any preparedness we can do for budgeting or at least awareness for planning? Because this is about 6 months to a year out, obviously.
Yeah. Is code enforcement complaint-based?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a good start. So enforcement is complaint-based. With something like this, I think, again, education is the best tool that I have right now. I'm not your code enforcement officer. I do handle code enforcement as far as floodplain goes. So it'll be more of, hey, this is what's proposed. This is kind of the rules. This is how we can help. Let's find a solution rather than you just got to pick up and move. I don't think that that's fair. But at the end of the day, my job is to make sure that residents are safe in the event of a flood. So I will do everything in my power to do that.
Okay, and then the other last question I would have, I guess, in relation to this is the impact emergency services. Obviously now we have to allow for access to a lot of these areas that are now special flood hazard. Does that change requirements for city or county to have to establish different road structures, drainage structures, anything like that, access to these areas that would be not accessible during a flood?
I'll probably let Public Works Director or the county speak to that one as far as floodplain goes and my side of things. It is just something to be aware of and so that you can plan around it. Any new utilities that come in need to be designed to withstand the floodwaters. So at least utilities will be fine. As far as roadway, I personally don't look at that. That is more of a planning and public works thing.
Okay, thank you.
Council Holt?
I just wanted to point out that even though not everybody is in the floodplain, most of Creswell is, but there are some places like my house that is not. it's really not gonna make a lot of difference when it comes to insurance. The people that aren't in floodplains are also going to see a rate increase because of the increase
They're near.
community-wide. And so I just wanted to bring that up, make sure that people know that. Yeah, it's not just going to touch the people that are in the floodplains.
It is a city issue.
It is a city issue. As far as insurance going up, if you're not in the floodplain, I'm not sure, I'm not an insurance
I
agent,
am,
but it's
that's why I'm saying. that.
fantastic, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is really quite an unfortunate situation. There are some areas where it's going up 8 feet, and that is kind of unheard of.
No, I can't say that definitively, but the way that insurance works, you know, they're not just rating you and your little house, they are looking at a big picture.
It's an
Yeah.
expanded view and aggregate information.
Unfair versus unfortunate.
Anyone else have any questions for Lenny?
That's-
I will add really quick that I'm going to the National Floodplain Conference at the end of May, and I'm gonna ask for advice as to how I can help you guys, just if something that I haven't thought of or the state NFIP coordinator hasn't thought of. There's other states that are gonna be there. We're not the only ones that have ever gone through this, but leaning on professionals, and I'd be happy to write a kind of summary when I get back, just of ideas.
Did you say NFIB will be there?
NFIP, yeah, the state coordinators will be there, and representatives from across the field,
Okay.
but no FEMA.
Councilor Kramer?
Is there a place that the citizens could go look as the maps are changing?
Yes,
So they could see if their house is gonna be in part of that or not?
absolutely. So Curtis and I were actually talking earlier today, getting that public website up, Forerunner. You just type in your address or you can explore the map. It'll have every data that we have on it, ECs, or you can toggle the effective and the preliminary, and it doesn't reset the view, which is really nice. So you can see exactly where it's gonna be.
How's that app spelled?
Forerunne.
So that's different than the original information that went out?
It is.
Supersedes all of it then?
It doesn't, Forerunner, Forunner. It doesn't supersede it, it just makes it a little bit easier to navigate,
Is that
so.
.gov, .org?
It's specific to Creswell, I don't have the specific link off the top of my head. We did just partner with them, but we'll make sure that it's on the website this week-ish, this week,
Yeah,
okay?
good touch base into that.
Yeah.
And there's a section there, you know, you can ask any questions, it'll come straight to me. So if it's a property specific one or you want more information, I have your contact and I have your property, we can just go. Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the effort.
Appreciate it, Mayor Council.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes?
And it pertains to the fire levy. Putting up signs, will the code enforcer ignore where we put those signs? Are we allowed to put them anywhere? Or do we have to follow the same criteria that we always do about signs?
Probably will be the same criteria, right? It's like a political sign. I mean, you're allowed to have it for so long, before and after.
Well, on my property, I can have it right up to the sidewalk on Oregon Avenue side, but when it's on Third Street, I have to have it back 4 feet. And so that's well, I was wondering if they're allowing us to put them anywhere during this time.
I would stick to regulations,
Yeah.
so, even though we know a guy, probably better not use that guy, we'll get in trouble. All right, Vincent?
All right, so in your packet, I prepared a memo to give you a little bit of an update on the family-oriented village. As a reminder, this is being set up for families with children, partnering through the school district to set up a village to have them housed. So I'm here for really just, it's not a formal presentation, but just to check in with the council, given some of what's come to my attention about some of the concern about having the village. At the bottom of the memo, there's really, I'm asking two options: to continue the exploration and set up a June work session, or instruct me to discontinue efforts at this time.
Does council mind if I go? I prepared a statement. You don't mind if I wrote that first? I've been reserved. I've been quieter than before during the last homelessness issues, to allow time for community to voice their input for both sides. Reflective about an everyone village in Creswell. Tonight, I'm gonna speak up. No, I do not support an everyone village model in Creswell. I've been called to offer a different option. I do not separate church and state. Both are rooted in our Constitution and how this country was founded. God does not join my side, he calls me to his. In this calling, I've heard the majority of Creswell's voice, their message is loud and clear. We will not support the everyone village model. My dissension of everyone village has led me to find other avenues of support to those in need of our city. Councilor Kramer spoke to those last meeting. I thought he had some good ideas. Through that and conversations and a lot of thought, we are Tree City USA 15 years in a row. That's an amazing streak that has engineered an alternative option in my mind to have a yearly giving tree. We can still work with Creswell School District, Family Resource Services, Creswell First, city staff, for an anonymous platform. This allows us to pick something from the tree for a Creswell family in need. It allows the Creswell School District and Family Resources to find that need, put it on a tree, and allow a citizen to come in and pick something. For example, clothing, food, utility bills, good used vehicle, gas money, support for services for healthcare, fees for sports, music, dance, potential introduction to an employer who is looking for a good employee. Those are just some of my examples. We are a bedroom community, and with that designation comes inherent heartfelt love and kindness to do for others. I believe this idea allows Creswellians to assist if they can or want to, rather than spend city staff time and or tax dollars that would be going to a program that the majority of clearly does not want. Creswell Helping Creswell is and always will be an underlying foundational base for us to move forward together and build off of. So I want to make sure that's clear to everybody listening, everybody that's here. I am a no. So thank you for listening. Councilor Castillo, would you like to go next?
I have had several conversations about this, and I have not heard any community support for this deal. And it's, for this counselor, it's pretty hard to get behind this project with no community support, being with the experience that we had some time ago with the House bill, you know, the homeless thing. And I for one, do not want to lead this community down that trail again. So for me, it's option number 2.
Councilor Morris?
Well, I started out with many mixed feelings, but I think the unintended consequences might come back to bite us. I'm not sure. It looks as though no taxpayer money will be used.
On the front. Yeah.
At the front end.
That's, and then hearing that there's so many calls for altercations and overdoses and such. This is supposed to be for families only. In my mind, I'm thinking single mothers and children. I mean, there, but for the grace of God, go all of us, is really in the back of my mind this whole time, because they're human. I mean, their mother loved them.
Yep.
So I just don't know if this model wouldn't have some unintended consequences, and how people from other cities or states would be rooted out, you know, of the village, I guess. I mean, everyone has needs. I'm a sucker, but anyway, I think at this point, I think there's a need for housing. Now, that's something that you hadn't mentioned. I'm not sure what the answer is for that. So housing is one of those needs, and this would take care of that, and maybe a lot of other things. And I don't know if there would be treatment. I don't know if these families have mental health issues or what. I think the Cottage Grove one village maybe is larger, it sounds like, and has a lot different mix of people in it. So I don't know if that would mean that ours would have less complications. but I would like to see other options, so I'm a no as well.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Holt?
Yeah, I'm definitely a no. I've been a no the whole time. Because even if we aren't paying for this, we are still impacting our community. We're putting a strain on community resources. We're putting a strain on, well, and never mind the fact that what happens if they build this little community and then suddenly, well, we're in Creswell, but we need to get to our doctor in Springfield, you know, or things like that, or DHS in Cottage Grove or Springfield. We have no services here. We have some wonderful charities here. We have no services. So for me, I'm a hard no, and I want to discontinue this discussion.
Excellent. Counselor Dukes?
Yeah, I too had a lot of questions about it. I didn't like the way the system was set up, because there was no out. They were able to stay there forever.
Sunset, didn't
And
sunset.
that's not to help people come out. I mean, that's the whole reason we have the systems we do have with the government stuff, is to get you back up on your feet, and then you're out on your own again, just like being a parent. And there was none of that with the way it was presented to us, and I wasn't happy about that at all, period. And I'm still kind of the same way, and I don't want to put any of that in. I mean, the drug people are the ones that are going to be in there. They're the ones that's going to be sitting there, and it's not going to make our community safe. And that's my biggest thing. My 13-year-old should be able to run around the street in the afternoon, early evening, and still be safe and not have to worry about this stuff. And we already have problems with that stuff, and I want it off the streets. I don't want to put any more on it.
So you're
So,
no?
no.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Kent?
I'm pretty much exactly where Councilor Morris is. It was, I came in, I really liked the idea of having it limited to, you know, families registered with the school district, being able to vet like that. But I've also got to say, Chief Wooten was very persuasive in his discussion about how, you know, it's supposed to be community-based, but then, you know, you've got your, you know, people from Utah and Nevada and stuff like that. And I just think of, you know, unintended consequences and the road to hell being paved with good intentions. And, yeah, I've also got to, this is not where I thought I would be going with this, but I've also got to say no.
Okay. Counselor Kramer?
All right, well, we heard a little bit tonight, and, you know, the safety aspect of it, not just the fire, but also our Lane County sheriffs. We're also, I mean, you also gotta look at these floodplains, like this property could be in a floodplain, so we're gonna add a cost on with this. The grant funding will run out sometime. And we do not wanna put that bill onto Creswell, their residents, or anything else. If anything, we need something that Creswell embrace, not dislike it that much, that they'll hold something against that. We need something that will grow with Creswell, you know, give them options, you know, ask them what they need. They might not even need, maybe they just need a job.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's just, hey, I gotta get some clothes on my kids, you know?
Maybe some fresh clothes for a job interview. You brought up some really good topics last time you spoke, so that helped me.
Yeah, there's tons of other things, you know, we don't have the resources, but, you know, some of these families, they just need a little bit of help. You know, they push them over the hump. And again, we don't have resources. You know, unfortunately, that's kind of it, you know. We want these people to succeed if they're homeless. We don't want to keep them that way. We want them to go through the cycle and move them up. So I want to make sure there's a successful plan going forward. So I'm a no.
Okay. Well, I think there you have it. I did want to come with an idea, not just a no, so that was my giving tree idea.
I like that idea.
Creswell is a very giving community, and Councilor Kramer, some of your thoughts and ideas on that last time is a perfect way. What do they want? What do they need? If the Creswell First and the school district and the family resources put those on a tree, and we kept it up all year in Tree City, USA, somebody can come by and maybe they can go in with a family member, or maybe we can cover their utility bills for a month. So I think, I feel in my opinion, I wanted to come with not only a no, but an alternative to trying to help. Debbie?
I appreciate that. Part of why I asked the question with the gentleman with Creswell first was because maybe people would be more inclined to help them. I saw one of their sections was to help with utility bills or other Creswell-specific things, but volunteering out in the community, especially being in the schools, there's a lot of great people out there that are willing to help, that have resources to help, but maybe we just haven't woke them up yet to the need. And growing up in a really small town on the coast, churches did help, but also neighbors helped, and people knew when people needed help. Maybe it's a little bit harder in this time where you don't want to expose people, but you're right, if all it took was helping to pay a bill, or not all of them are homeless right now, they may be on the border of sinking and the fear of being homeless because they can't pay an electric bill or they can't get a furnace fixed or some of the other things that Catherine Dumas mentioned. Maybe we should try to make it a community effort or come together and try to combine those thoughts and see where we could go with it to help people.
Well, then conversation still needs to continue, but for us, that conversation with everyone in the village is dead. Councilor Kent?
I want to thank you also for, bringing in an alternative. I like that too.
Thank you.
And I'd be willing to, help out if I could.
Thank you.
And I also want to recognize the work you've done with that.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Councilor Morris?
It's not a huge group, it doesn't sound like.
It's not. From what we gathered, 11 to 13
families.
So,
And I happen to know one of the families just got housing, and the kids are gonna finish the school year here, but then they won't even be going to school here.
And part of it's a federal issue. We can't help the interest rates and we can't help the garbage that's going on. We can only help our own.
Yeah, it's true. And I would argue that we have a lot of fixed income members of Creswell that are facing all of these same tax increases, property taxes, food costs are higher, gas is higher, fire and safety levy is gonna go up, So I just can't, I think that we have more people in Creswell than people are willing to admit that are this close to being homeless themselves if they get taxed or feed again.
Yeah.
Like, I think about that too.
Well, you also take incentive away from the people who may have money but work really hard and can get taxed to death where they're getting taxed to the point where I'm going to give up working so hard. What's the point? You might as well just take the freebies.
I had a really hard time accepting the fact that everyone village allows off-site drug use. They can
100%.
they can go get drunk and stoned, like on their own time, and then as long as they come back without any of that stuff on them. My issue with that is that I don't work hard and pay tax dollars to support their habit, because then that's exactly what you're doing. You're saying, okay, I'm gonna pay your rent, go ahead and go do your things that you like to do.
I agree with you 100%.
I can't do it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but again, this was to be family oriented, right?
Which
It
they
wasn't-
told us
it
that
wasn't open to everybody.
there is addiction in a couple of those situations.
What she said was there was a recovery for a year. One of the women was an addict and she was in recovery for a year. Because you asked that question specifically.
I'd have to go back and look.
Okay. Everybody good? Let's adjourn.